Hello and welcome to Gary's Garage. Today we're working on the Subaru. It's a Legacy. It's a 2006, I think, 2005, 2006. It's the turbo 2.5 EJ motor, and what we're doing is front brakes. So the brakes on this thing are pretty rusty. So one of the things we're going to be doing is replacing a caliper bracket. And you say, well, why would we do that? Because usually you can still service them even if they're rusty. However, Subarus have this unique issue, and I'm going to show you what that's all about. So what I'm showing you here is the caliper bolt, the caliper bracket bolt, and this is the strut and the strut to knuckle bolt. And when you use the 17-inch or 17 millimeter, sorry, you can get it on to this bolt. But if you look at from the top, you can see that it's on an angle. And it's on an angle because there's an interference with this lower strut bolt to the. So, I mean, you can get it off. Usually if you use a socket or short socket and an extension, you can get it off. But what happens is that people take this off, and then when they go to put it on, they put the bolt in the socket and they turn, and what do? They cross thread this bolt into this caliper bracket, and then they strip it out. And that's what's happened to this one. So there's two things you can do when you're putting it together. Make sure you use a shallow socket and an extension so you can get this straight on. Put it in with your fingers, whatever. Make sure it's threaded before putting any torque to it. Or remove this bolt, which is not that difficult in most cases. If your car's super rusty, it might be a problem. But then you can go straight on and make sure you get this bolt into the bracket. And so this particular car owner is now in for a bit of a heavy cost over what standard brakes would cost, because he's got to replace this caliper bracket in the bolt. So anyway, stay tuned and we'll show you how we get on with this. Okay, next thing to do is to remove the caliper from the slide pins and remove the brake pads. And you want to take the caliper and hook it up. But to get it off, you need a 14 millimeter socket or a wrench. And if for some reason the pins turn, you can use a 17 millimeter wrench to get it off. In this case, I know that these are seized. I'm pretty sure they're seized, so there's no need to use the 17. They shouldn't be too tight, by the way. They should be pretty easy. They should be in pretty firm. I don't know what the torque is, but I'll look it up when we're putting it. I'll show you when we're putting it back together. But you want to get these off, and then to get the pads out, or to get the caliper off, get your hook ready, and you can usually do this with your hand. Oh, there we go. Pretty rusty, these guys. And you can, come on. Well, this was not going to go easy. Well, I'll put it back here. This will be fine. As long as there's no tension on the, because these are cast iron calipers, no tension on the hose. This is a good time to inspect your hose, make sure it's okay. This one's a little rusty at the end, but still fine. No cracks. And you can see the pads just come out. There's little ears, and there's these anti-vibration springs, which are on the bottom. So a little prying. And off we go. You can see how badly grooved those are. These rotors are pretty rusty. Alright, next up is to take the caliper bracket off. All right. So I'm going to remove this bolt. This is 19 millimeter. Now, air tool comes out pretty easy, and then now I've got access to that bolt in the back, and then because you've got straight access to it, you can use power tool to take it out. Wouldn't do it to go in, but there we go. So this, if you can see, is the problem. Someone's cross-threaded this and then just drove it home, and it's an absolute mess. And in the process has pulled out half the threads in this caliper bracket. So gotta get a new one. So anyway, let's get the rotor off and get this all installed. If your rotor's stuck on, there's a couple of threaded holes. You just put a bolt in there, and then as you thread the bolt in, it just pushes up against the hub, and it'll release that rust. All right, to prepare our caliper bracket for installation, first we'll just make sure we've got the right one. They're marked. There's an L for left. This is on the left side. There's a stamping, a T28-1. This is the stamping. This must be just a year code, or I don't know, something. Anyway, so we're established this is the correct one. Putting it in the vise, I got my aluminum sleeves to make sure we're okay. Got the pin. There's two pins. One with the rubber seal and one without, and I ended up reusing this one because I'm going to reuse this one because I've just cleaned it up. The diameter of the replacement one is not the same. I don't know, I think someone's mixed up the part inside the package, and so I just cleaned this up. We're going to reuse it. So to put them in, first thing we want to do is get some lube inside the holes. I use silicone brake lube, and you want to be liberal with it, but you don't want to create a situation where you've got so much that it hydrolocks. It's got to go all the way to the bottom. That's important. So as long as it feels like it's going all the way to the bottom, and it'll create a little air seal, and you'll feel the suction on it and the pressure as you push and pull. But as long as it goes all the way to the bottom, you're good. Make sure that you got some all the way around there, as well as in the hole. Because if this, this will, with the heat and everything, this will eventually dry up. And, often, especially with, in this particular car, belongs to a friend of mine, he doesn't use his brakes very hard, so they rust out long before they wear out. So, as a part of the problem is that, the whole system rusts, and then the pins. You want to install the rubber boots. They are two different sizes. There's a millimeter difference between the flange on one side and the other. The larger side goes on the caliper bracket. You're going to install those, or you can do it either way. Just put it on there, shove it in, give it a turn, and now you've got a nice seal. So let's get that out. Put on there. There we go. So that's set. Now we can go install this caliper bracket in the car. While you got it apart before you put it back together, it's a good opportunity to clean up some of the loose rust and stuff. It's not absolutely imperative that you do this, but it does show a more professional finish, and you can use the big one, get into little places with the reds are clean, but don't put any lubricant on there. The torque spec for your wheel nuts is with dry threads. So, alright, so if you just brake clean on the back, put a little bit of fluid film on the hub, not a lot. You just want to help prevent the rotor from rusting onto the hub. You don't want to get it too covered in stuff so that it gets onto the friction material. There we go. So at this point, sometimes what I like to do is spin on one of the nuts, and it'll hold the rotor somewhat in place. Usually it won't bottom, but it's pretty close. And then you'll notice that this bolt's still out. Get this on, go through the knuckle and into hard to do without putting my hand in the way. There we go. We're good. We're going to get the torque wrench out and do that, but it's a little bit too tight because I need to adjust the bottom. The bottom bolt. This is not a Subaru bolt, but Subaru only had one bolt in stock. Whoever did the brakes on this car last messed this up, but at least this bolt's in good condition. It's got a shoulder on it. It's the right grade, 10-9 grade. So, so that's it. I just got to get the torque wrench on, and then we're going to put the brake pads on and that. So just hold tight. So the torque for these bolts is 88 foot-pounds. So now I'm going to torque the strut to the knuckle. You put the torque wrench on the nut side, which is in this case the front, and you have to hold the bolt from the other side. I hate doing this with an extension, but I don't think I have much choice. There we go. And just to verify. Okay, to get the brackets ready to take the calipers, first thing you want to do is add a little lubricant, some brake lube to the surfaces of the bracket where the stainless steel shims go on. And the reason why we do this isn't to protect the shims because they're made out of stainless, they're not going to rust, but it's to slow down rust development on these on the bracket so that it doesn't because when metal rusts it expands, and then it'll tighten up on your brake shoes, and then they will start squeaking, or they'll get tight and not return. So a little bit of lube on these surfaces. Try not to get any, of course, on the rotors at all. If you do accidentally touch them, just clean them up with a little brake clean. I've brake cleaned the back, but not the front yet, but I'll do that before I put the shoes on. But there we go. So that's ready to take the clips. Here are the clips. Just push them in place. These are anti-vibration, anti-squeal, whatever you want to call them. They apply pressure to the back of the shoes, these, to keep them from vibrating in the holder. So there we go. Next up, a little brake clean. Let the oil run off, wipe it down. In this case, I'm going to there we go. So now we can put some shoes in. Let me grab the shoes. So with the clips in, we then turn around, put a little bit more of the silicone grease in the slot, which is where the slot of the shoe is, and we're also going to put a little bit on there as well. Again, make sure you don't touch the surface of the brake shoes with this. And this is all, you know, it's the same thing. It's making sure they don't lock up and end up squealing, whatnot. So there we go. And then the other thing is that we're going to lube the back of the shoe, or sorry, the pad, once it's in. So obviously it goes this way, and we've got this another anti-vibration clip. So you have to put this in like that, push this over, get like that. This is where you need a little screwdriver or pick. Make sure the screwdriver is clean. When you don't have this clip, you can turn these and put them in, but you just need the screwdriver just to keep this spring out of the way. Once it's in place, take a little bit more lube, and what you're doing is trying to mimic where the caliper is, where this part of the caliper is going to be, and they're on the outside, one in the middle. So there's 3 on this particular model. Some have just 2 little fingers that go back here, and just put a little bit on there, and then before we put the caliper on, we're going to put a little bit of grease. I'm just doing that now on the back. Before installing the caliper, we need to push in the pistons in the caliper, and this is a dual piston system. So I've just used one of the old brake pads, one of the worn brake pads, and I'm just going to use a clamp. At first it'll go down crooked, but once you get to the bottom, it'll flatten out, and the other side will go down. Here we go. Easy peasy. Now before I've done this, I've suctioned out some brake fluid out of the master cylinder to give this enough room. So that should be down. And that's it. So no fancy tool, although some cars still need a fancy tool. This one is pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to add a little bit of lube to there. You can see there, but I got this hooked up, but these are pretty rusty. These are almost end of life here, but it's remove your hook. Make sure you're not twisting up your brake line. and then set that in place. There's a couple. Now normally you get new ones. Some kits include new ones. Normally you need a little bit of thread locker, and so the new ones will come with thread locker on them typically. And if you're going to reuse the bolts, just add a little bit of thread locker to it. I mean, I'm using red, but I think the spec is for blue. Just use less. You should still be able to get it out, providing you can get your 17mm wrench on the... There we go. I'm just going to grab the torque wrench. You don't have to watch this. It's 20 foot-pounds. I'm going to torque these. If these turn, you can put your 17mm wrench on these guide pins. They keep that part from rotating as you're putting your 20 foot-pounds on. And that's basically the job. Just have to do a final clean, take any fingerprints off, take your hook out, double check all your torques, and reinstall the wheel. You're good to go. So that is the front brakes on the Subaru Legacy. So again, as usual, thanks for tuning into Gary's Garage. Hope you learned anything. If you got a little tip or anything out of this, it was probably worthwhile. I thank you for watching. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments. If you have a better idea, if you think I should have done this a different way or whatever, you know, that's how we learn in this sort of community, this online do-it-yourself YouTube community. So please do that and help me out as much as you can. I appreciate your support, and thank you for watching Gary's Garage.